After hitting the 1 million landmark, I told my husband that you should be gifting me something. He said, "Tell me what you want." I said, "Now I have to think big." I told him that let's buy a real estate property in this IT park in Pune. Then I thought, why not in Mumbai? Then I thought, why not in Hyderabad or Chennai? But then I said, why or? I always believe in the word and. So why not buy the whole IT park in all these four cities? Hi guys, CA Rachana Ranade here and I welcome you all to a brand new video obviously demanded by my subscribers, which is on Mindspace Business Park REIT IPO. Friends, this IPO has opened up for subscription yesterday, that is on 27th July, and it's going to close tomorrow, that is on 29th of July. So don't forget to share this video with your friends today itself. And one more very important point is that I'm not going to cover only about this IPO, but towards the end of the video, if you want your knowledge to be global, then I'm going to talk about REITs outside India, how they are in the US markets, especially for my global subscribers. Then do watch the video till the end. Now, first of all, I think it's very important to understand what is a REIT. Then only you will be in a position to decide that whether I should go ahead with this or not. A basic thumb rule for investment: if you don't understand the investment, don't invest in it. Okay, so for that, how are you going to understand it? By watching this lecture. So let's start the concept of what is REIT in a very simplified manner. Okay, so here you can check on the screen that there are two LLPs, Cape Trading LLP and NB Constructions LLP, who are the promoters. Okay, promoters, they are, in this case, they are called as sponsors. Okay, one who start the trust. So these are the sponsors, promoters. Now what did they do? They have this is the proposed structure, by the way. What they're proposing is that they're going to have this trust. Okay, trust, Mindspace Business Parks REIT. That is what we are going to talk about, right? So what happened? Number one, two promoters called as two sponsors. What did they establish? They established a trust. Obviously, if a trust is established, there are going to be some trustees. There's going to be some manager. Who is the trustee? Axis Trustee Services Limited is the trustee, and who is the manager? K. Raheja Corp Investment Managers LLP. That is the manager of this trust. Okay. Now let's understand, what does this trust do? With all the money they have, what are they going to do? They are going to invest it somewhere. But where are they going to invest it? They are going to invest in real estate. Okay, real estate mainly for commercial use. Okay, they are going to invest in all these investment avenues, like as I mentioned, real estate in more of commercial use. Okay. Now, where do I as an investor come into picture? Let's understand now. Try to understand the business model of this trust. What is the trust going to do? So promoters gave some money. With this money, they are going to invest in real estate property. They are going to get rent. They are going to get capital appreciation. With the new money they have, they are going to buy another real estate property. But obviously, buying so many spaces requires more and more money. So what Mindspace Business Park REIT decided is that let's raise this money from people like you and me. And that is why they have come up with an IPO. Okay, but it's a REIT, it's a trust. Trust is not going to issue you shares. Trust is going to issue you units. That's a very big difference. Okay, you're not going to get shares. You're not going to get ownership of any company. You're going to get units of this trust. Okay, so in simple words, you're going to get a unit, a portion of what? You're going to get a portion of the investments made by this trust. Now, where has the trust made this investment? The investment you can see here, they have made in various companies like K. Raheja IT Park, who has bought the IT Park. Or if you see here, if I'm talking about another SPV, which is KRC Infrastructure and Projects Private Limited. This is like the SEZ Park, IT Park in Pune. Okay, so you can imagine this. This SPV has purchased the entire IT Park. Okay, so this entire IT Park is owned by whom? By this company, and this company is finally under the trust. Okay, now what am I going to do? I'm going to buy the units which give me a small portion of what? A small portion of only the Kharadi plant? No, not only of the Kharadi IT Park, of all these commercial properties. I'm going to get a small portion of that. So that is where I told in the very first part of the video, why not invest everywhere? Why not invest in each and every IT park? Right, in every commercial property. So when I buy one unit of this trust, of this REIT, basically, I am going to get a small portion of all these assets. Okay, all these real estate properties. Now wait, I get a small portion means what? What am I entitled to? If I'm an investor, what am I entitled to? Is this property going to be given on rent? So those who are from Pune, everyone knows that there's a big IT park in Kharadi. There are going to be various companies, okay, who are going to be occupying these spaces on rent. So you can imagine a company like Amazon. Amazon has its office in this IT park, okay, and this IT park is directly, indirectly owned by this Mindspace REIT. Now what happens? Amazon pays rent to whom? To the IT park. Amazon pays rent to the IT park. This rental income is of whom? Is of the trust. This trust is going to pass on this rental income to me, the investor, not in the nature of rent, but in the nature of dividend. So me as an investor, what am I going to get? I'm going to get dividend. I'm not going to get rental income. Okay. Now let's read the definition of REIT. First I taught you with the help of an example. Now let's read the definition of REIT. Then you will get that confidence that yes, I have understood this. Okay. So what's the definition? A real estate investment trust, REIT, is a company that owns, operates or finances. Okay. It could be a company, it could be a trust as well. Okay. So in our example, Mindspace, this one is a trust, but then they have various SPVs which are again companies. Okay. You can see here limited or private limited. Okay. So what is a REIT? It's a trust or it's a company that what owns, operates or finances. In our example, it's owning these properties. So understood. Next, income producing properties which are mostly commercial properties, offices. That also we mentioned. All were IT parks. They were not residential properties. These are commercial ones. Third, that generate a steady income stream for investors. What was the example that I gave you? Rent. That was a steady income stream that they were getting. And who was receiving that rental income? It was the REIT which was receiving the rental income, the trust. And how am I going to get it? In the nature of dividend. Okay. And last one, it may also offer a small return in the nature of capital appreciation, by way of capital appreciation. So I hope this part is clear. It could be rent, it could be a small part of capital appreciation as well. And in the end, again, I would like to repeat, I don't get that entirely. I'm going to get a part of that. We are going to discuss that in the coming part of the video, but I get it in the nature of dividend. Okay. Now everyone is very clear about what is a REIT. Okay. So assume that you all decide that yes, we are going to apply for this, okay, IPO. Example, every one of you decides that we are going to apply for this IPO. Now this trust has got so much money. Now if they feel that chodo yaar, let's not invest in real estate, we will invest all this money in the stock market. Okay, is that allowed? Answer is no. There are certain restrictions on the REIT as to where can they invest. Okay, here it is very clearly mentioned. These are the SEBI guidelines, by the way. It mentions that it is invest not less than 80% of the value of its assets in completed and rent and or income generating properties. In simple words, Mindspace, I'm just saying Mindspace now, okay, Mindspace, whenever they get this money, they have to invest not less than 80%. So minimum 80% they'll have to invest where? In completed properties. So can I say risk will be less? Yes, under construction properties if they're investing, then definitely the chance that the project might get delayed, there could be certain unforeseen circumstances, all those could pop in. But the good way is that 80% minimum has to be in completed properties. And second one is not more than 20%. So max to max 20%. Where can they invest? It could be in incomplete properties. It could be in shares of other listed companies and so on and so forth. But these are the two major investment related conditions applicable to REITs. Now understand that there are few restrictions on REITs as well. So what are the major restrictions? I'm not going to cover all, but I'm going to talk about two major restrictions which I feel are important. Number one, they can't invest in vacant land or agricultural land or mortgages other than mortgage backed by securities or assets located outside India. Okay. So I hope you have understood the exposure. Exposure is not going to be for vacant land. They are not going to invest in vacant land or agricultural land or any property which is located outside India. They are not allowed to invest in that. Second restriction is that whatever income they are going to get, okay, by way of rental income, by way of capital appreciation, they must distribute, a good point for you coming up, they must distribute at least 90% of its taxable income to its shareholders annually. Instead of shareholders, I personally would prefer the word unit holders, because that's what I mentioned in the beginning. We are not going to get shares. We are not shareholders. We are going to be unit holders. So whatever net income I'm getting as a REIT, okay, what is net income? Is it going to be your dividend received? Is it going to be the rental income received? No, rental income minus whatever expenses, na? So the net income, whatever they have, out of that, let us say the net income is 100, okay? Minimum 90 out of that is to be distributed to whom? To us, to unit holders, okay? Now let's get a basic overview of Mindspace REIT. Okay, the very first thing which I wanted to highlight is that they have 5 integrated business parks, wherein they have rented spaces to offices, to restaurants, to creche, so on. So they are having a lot of diversified business parks. Second one is that there are 172 tenants in their portfolio. Means what? There are total 172 different entities who have taken their space on rent. Now, why is this important? So let us say one or two tenants default, they don't pay rent. It's okay. There are so many more who are paying rent. But then the question is, what if only one tenant fails, but that one tenant is paying almost 90% of their total rental income? Then also that might lead to a big failure. So one more very important fact here is that not a single tenant is paying them more than 7.7% of their gross rental. Means what? The highest rent paying company, okay, if total 100 rupees of rent is collected by Mindspace, then one single customer is not paying more than 7.7 rupees out of the total 100 rupees of rent. So it's a very positive point. In simple words, can I say that their rental income is diversified? They're getting it from many customers, and that too, it's evenly distributed. So I feel that's a very important point again. 84.9% of their gross contractual rents come from MNCs like Accenture. So what is this gross contracted or contractual rents? Basically, it's that they have entered into a contract that they are going to get rent for sure. Okay, so is there any duration for which they are going to get rent? So for that, there is a concept of WALE, WALE. I'll quickly tell you the full form of that. It's weighted average lease expiry. And for Mindspace, the WALE is 5.8 years. I will say, understood nothing. Okay, I'll quickly tell you what is 5.8 years WALE. In simple words, for the next, on an average, 5.8 years, they have entered into a contract with whom all these tenants that they are going to pay them rent. Means what? In simple words, because of this pandemic, there are many offices who instructed their employees that you have to work from home. Do you think that Mindspace didn't get rent for all these months? What do you think? Of course they got the rent. They are not going to say, "Arey, arey, bechare, they are not getting enough income. They are all the employees are working from home. Why should we charge?" No one is going to say that. What have they done? They have entered into a contractual agreement. And what is the clause? Clause is that you have to pay the rent. And how much is the time frame? Time frame is 5.8 years on an average. What do we mean by on an average? With some of these 172 clients, some of them might be having a contract for, let us say, 3 years. Some of them might be having a contract of 8 years. Some of them might be having a lease of 50 years, whatever. Okay, so on an average, it is 5.8 years. And I feel that's again a very big positive point. So one more point which I would like to add here is that the committed occupancy is very important. Please tell me, if the spaces which they own are vacant, then their income is directly impacted, correct? For Mindspace, 92% is the committed occupancy ratio. Okay, so you can imagine something like this, that out of the 100 properties they have, 92 properties, okay, that have been rented out on a commitment basis again. Okay, and not only that, the ratio which was at 92% on 31st March 2020, it has gone up to 92.4% on 31st May 2020. Now you might be wondering, how is this possible? See, this is such a positive point again, that the 92% occupancy rate has gone up to 92.4%. And why these 2 months were important? These were the lockdown wale months. Okay, so I think this point is also pretty important. So we get a fair enough understanding that yes, there might have been some impact because of the pandemic, but not so much as far as these figures are concerned. Quickly, I would also like to tell you about where are the various locations in which they have invested. They have invested in Hyderabad, in Pune, in Chennai, in Mumbai. If you remember the very first slide which we discussed, the very first part of the video, wherein I had shown you a picture of all these IT parks, right? So they are in all these 4 major cities. They have a total leasable area of 29.5 MSF, million square feet. That's a huge leasable area. And this 29.5 million square feet, you can also see that how much out of that is what. So 23 MSF is completed, 3.6 is future development, and 2.8 is under construction area. I think before moving on, I should talk about a very important point, that is risk factor. One very big risk factor that they face is that if these lease rentals are not renewed, then what? Then their income can drop down drastically. If you remember the WALE, which was the weighted average lease period, that was 5.8 years agreed. But there'll be some leases which are like 2 years, 3 years, some which are 4 years, some might be higher. But let's take this example. Whatever are the 2 years or 3 years leases, these lease contracts don't get renewed. Work from home, which has just started as a new point, becomes a habit for people, then what? Then maybe the lease contracts might not be renewed. If they are not renewed, it will be a direct impact on the top line of the revenue of this REIT. And if their revenue drops, our dividend, which we are going to derive from their income, that also may drop drastically. So we are not seeing the impact right now. Understand this. Why aren't we seeing the impact right now? Because these are contractual agreements. They've already signed an agreement. The tenants have to pay them rent right now. Even if the employees are working from home, still they'll have to pay rent. When will the real problem start? Real problem may start when these companies don't renew their contracts. So this is what I think we have to be very careful about. Now let's go to the financials of this IPO. The very first thing I would like to tell you is that the income, the total income basically, which was 15,022 million rupees in 2018, jumped to 16,797 millions, a roughly 10% increase. But from 2019 to 2020, there was almost a 20% jump. Okay, so this year, as far as revenues are concerned, was much better as compared to previous year. But if you check the bottom line, which is profits for the year, that is profit after tax, it was 1,610 in 2018, which went up to 5,154, and which again dropped a bit to 5,139. Now, I'm sure you might be wondering that if I'm comparing only 2019 versus 2020, what is the scenario? 2020 revenue is up by 20% as compared to 2019, but the profit has gone down by almost 5%. And what is that? It is contributed by two major items. The very first one is deferred tax charge, which is 1,578. But that's okay. That's more of an accounting thing. We don't have to pay deferred tax to anyone. Like we have to pay income tax. That is called as a current tax in financial statements. We don't have to pay deferred tax to anyone. So it's okay. It's okay even if you don't consider this 1,578 as a big item. And the second one is 2,140, which is cost of work contract services. Okay. Well, as far as the balance sheet is concerned, there is again one very important point, which is the debt to equity ratio. Debt to equity ratio, as a thumb rule, we say that it should not be more than 2:1. But if you see here, the total liabilities are somewhere around 63,000 plus 164,000 roughly, plus this 67,000. Okay, 67,000 roughly liabilities, debt, versus its equity, which is 22,915. This is more than 3 times. So as I mentioned, ideally 2:1 debt to equity ratio. The debt to equity ratio here is a little bit higher. It's 3:1. Okay, are they going to take any step for this? Are they how are they going to reduce this? The simple answer to this is that whatever proceeds they are going to get from the IPO, majority of that they are going to route it to repay these debts. Okay, so that's a good part. Okay, so right now the debt to equity ratio is 3:1. In the next year's financial statements, ideally they should go down, because whatever proceeds they are going to get from this IPO, majority of that is going to go for repayment of this debt. Is this the very first REIT which is being listed on the stock exchange? Answer is no. The very first one was Embassy Park REIT, which got listed in April 2019. So more than 1 year ago, this REIT got listed on a stock exchange. The issue price of that REIT was 300, and the listing price was 312. On the day one, it closed at 314.10. So it's almost 4% up from its issue price. So 4% listing gains, almost I can say, which Embassy Park got. The current market price is around 360 rupees. Okay, so you can imagine, in a span of almost 1 year, the price has moved from 300 rupees to 360 rupees. So that's more than 20% gain. Okay, it's not exactly 360 also, it's changing right now as I'm speaking. So it's more than 20% roughly that it's a capital appreciation in a year. Plus, you can see here they have also given a dividend of 24.39 rupees per unit. So now you can see here that 20 rupees capital gain plus 24.39 rupees dividend also the unit holders have got. So fair enough, we can, if we get this same thing for this IPO as well, then sounds good. So let's talk about the issue details of this IPO. The IPO is split as 1000 rupees of fresh issue and 3500 of OFS. Now what does that mean? I was talking about repayment of debt, right? Is the entire 4500 going to be available for repayment of debt? Answer is no. Out of 4500, only 1000 crores will be available for repayment of debt. Also understand, 1000 crores I'm talking about, the P&L balance sheet was in millions. Okay, simple conversion, if you want to go from crores to millions, just increase a zero, and for vice versa decrease a zero. Okay, this part if you want you can check again. Okay, anyway, so fresh issue is of 1000 crores, offer for sale is 3500 crores. Minimum lot size, this is an important point, is 200 units. This is problematic area for some people, because with this 200 units and the per unit price, the minimum amount of investment now stands at 55,000 rupees. Generally, if you see for any IPO, the minimum investment is around 14,000, 15,000 rupees. Here, the minimum investment is 55,000 rupees. But as I explained in the beginning of the video, this is giving you a exposure to real estate rental income directly. Rather than me investing in a property and getting rental income, I'm getting rental income in the form of dividend, and I'm not investing directly in the property, I'm investing in a REIT. Okay, so if you want to diversify your portfolio, then I think this is a good investment opportunity available for you to diversify your portfolio. Okay, of course that does not mean that I'm directly recommending this to you, your own studies and all that, you know, right? Disclaimer is always there. One more very important point, that out of this 1518 crores were allocated to institutional investors as a part of anchor allotment, and apart from this anchor allotment, they have also tied up with various strategic investors worth 1125 crores. So you can imagine, out of 4500, 1518 crores gone and 1125 crores also gone. Roughly 2500 crores already have been taken up by big investors. Balance chunk is only available for people like you and me. Now if you want to have an example of who are these strategic investors, you can check it on the screen. There are big names like Capital Income Builder, American Fund Insurance series, Capital Group Income Builder, and all these. And if I talk about the names of anchor investors, Government of Singapore is holding 12% as a portion of the total investment. Nomura Trust 7.9%, Capital Income Builder 7.63%, Fidelity Funds 6.23%. So basically the big ticket players are definitely participating in this REITs issue. I think one big question still remains unanswered. And what is that? What about taxation of dividend that I'm going to get? I've told this so many times in this video. I'm not going to get rental income. I'm not going to get capital appreciation directly. What am I as an investor going to get? I'm going to get dividend. Okay. Now, if you understand this very carefully, there are two possibilities. Okay. Two possibilities, that the entity which is paying dividend, they go under the old tax regime of dividend or they go under the new tax regime of dividend. First, let us understand if they are going under new tax regime of dividend. In that case, they pay dividend tax at a lower rate, which is concessional. The concessional tax rate comes out to roughly 25.17%. Am I going to pay that? No. The entity which is paying dividend, they are going to pay that. If the entity which is paying dividend pays tax at a concessional rate, सुन रहा है ना तू रो रहे है, the government is feeling very bad, they are paying tax at concessional rate. Are they going to definitely take that money? Are they going to definitely take their own part of their tax? Yes. From whom? From us, the investors. So if the company which is paying dividend is paying tax at a concessional rate, me as an investor, I have to pay tax on this dividend. So in this case, tax on dividend will have to be paid. Okay. But if I'm talking about possibility number 2, if the entity which is paying dividend, they opt for the old tax regime, wherein the tax will be paid at 30% plus surcharge, education cess, whatever. Okay. So now government is happy. The company has paid 30% plus whatever tax. Now they say that, okay, now in this case, the the investor which is receiving dividend need not pay any tax on this. Okay, now what are you praying for? You are praying for only one point, that let it be a case where this case, Mindspace, falls under the old tax regime. Why? If they fall under the old tax regime, then and only then I will not have to pay tax on dividend. Do you know what is the case? The proposed tax structure which they have been following for even March 2020, the immediate previous financial year, they have opted for old tax regime only. Means what? Simple words. Me as an investor, whenever I'm going to get dividend, I have to pay zero tax on that dividend. Okay, I'm repeating this. Two possibilities were there, but what has Mindspace opted for? They have opted for the old tax regime, and that is the reason why dividend will be tax free in my hands. Now let's talk about a fun fact about REITs in India. It was in 2007 that SEBI first introduced basically REITs in India. When was it? In 2007. If you remember, I had promised that I would try my level best to cover a global angle now. So our knowledge should not be restricted only to Indian laws and Indian companies. Now let's go global. Hashtag going global. Okay. So now what we are going to do, we are going to cover the scenario of some other market as well. I've again chosen the US market. Like in India, SEBI approved REITs in 2007. It was only just like more than just 50 years ago that in 1960 their Congress had first allowed and introduced REITs. My God, there's such a big time lag. It's unbelievable, but that's true. Second, one more important point of differentiation between India and US REITs. Second is that right now it's just the second REIT to get listed on the Indian Stock Exchange. And if I'm talking about USA, there is a huge list, almost 225 REITs which are there on the US Stock Exchange. Of course, we'll say, "Hamari thodi na galti hai. They've introduced so early." That's okay. We're just doing a comparison. Don't get hurt by this. But you must know about this, that in India, it's just the second REIT, and abroad, it's like more than 225 publicly traded REITs. What about taxation? I just talked about the tax position in India, old tax regime, new tax regime. But if I'm talking about US, dividend is taxable. Okay. In what form? In the nature of capital gains, in the nature of other income. We are not going to go into US taxation. Frankly speaking, I'm not an expert in that. So let us just understand this, that it is taxable in US. But so US people, my dear subscribers, US subscribers who are watching this, for you all, it's taxable. For us, it is tax free as far as this issue is concerned. I hope that the taxation angle is also absolutely clear. And the last part, wherein everyone is really eager to hear this. What is the conclusion? Wait. At the end of day one, this REIT was subscribed 38%. Okay, still comparatively long way to go. But I feel, in spite of this being a comparatively newer investment avenue, in spite of the fact that the minimum lot size is equivalent in terms of rupees is 55,000, still 38% subscription on day one sounds good. If you ask me, am I going to invest? My answer is yes. Why I'm telling you? Because I don't have even one REIT in my portfolio, not even one unit of REIT in my portfolio. So I believe that this is a good way to diversify, to get dividends which are tax free in the nature of dividend, obviously. But finally, what I'm getting rental incomes. So I feel that if you want to diversify, that this can be a good investment opportunity for you. But as always, don't forget that you have to do your own research, and then only you have to decide whether you're going to buy or not. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you have enjoyed this, then all my standard instructions follow, that you have to share this on all your social media platforms. And till then, enjoy your day. Jai Hind and bye bye.